Hello everyone, this is City Scrapper. I'm so glad you could join me on my channel today. Today I have a process video for you that I made using the August My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. I chose a number of elements that I plan to use on my layout, and you can see here that I'm using some distress ink with a dauber, and I'm inking the edges of all of these items that I selected. This month the kit had 49 in market papers and embellishments, and the collection is called Beached. And there were also some sheets of paper from the Simple Stories collection called Simple Vintage Coastal. I really love the way these two collections work so well together. I really love adding florals to my layouts. So in addition to all of those embellishments, I die cut out some leaves. The ones that I'm inking right now are from an Altenew set called Tropical Leaf Mixed Die Set. And there were many dies in that set, but I just picked out this one particular one. And then those smaller leaves are from a Spellbinders die set that's called Tropical Paradise. And I'll put some information about those in the description box if you're interested in locating them. I wanted to have different layers of color on the leaves. The leaves that are on the left were die cut from one of the pattern papers in the collection that was a green color, and the leaves on the right were die cut from some white paper. The process that I used for both sets of leaves was the same though. I started out with some peeled paint, Distress Oxide. There's some Distress ink on my table, but I ended up just using the Distress Oxides. I put down the peel paint, and now I'm adding some mowed lawn. And I'm trying to get closer and closer to the edge. So the peel paint went over a larger area. The mowed lawn I tried to put over a smaller area. And now I'm putting down some pine needles Distress Oxide, and I'm trying to go closer to just the tips of the leaves. I love having different shades of the same color. I never want to have an area on my layout that's too flat, that the color is too flat and too consistent, because I feel like that makes it less interesting. So I like having leaves or any embellishments that have a lot of different layers and variation of color. These are my two photos, and I'm using some frames that were in the collection. These were from the punch-out sheets for the 49 and Market Beached collection. And I just loved the way there were frames in that die cut sheet that were all different sizes, but some of them were nice and big. Sometimes frames can be super small, and I like those too, but the photos that I had just happened to be perfect for these two frames. And for this layout, I'm using some beach photos. I feel like you don't even really need to use beach photos with these papers. You can use anything summery, pool photos. I just happen to have quite a few beach photos that I still hadn't scrapbooked. And even though there's a lot of tropical elements, like tropical flowers, I didn't worry about that. I just feel like the whole collection felt like the beach and the summer, and so I just went ahead and included all of those elements, even though we were in Cape Cod and you're not going to see any tropical flowers there. I used the piece of paper that I had used underneath the leaves when I was inking them to back both of the photos. I want to make sure that the photos are nice and sturdy before I add the adhesive foam to them. So I backed them with the heavier paper. It's 120-pound paper, and then I backed them with the foam, and then I attached both of them down to this very oddly shaped, almost like an oval piece of cardstock, and I'm going to assemble everything onto that piece of cardstock. And I like to do this when I make a large cluster. I like to be able to move the cluster around. And then I also like to be able to add mixed media to the background if I would like to. Now on this layout, the background needed nothing. It is so beautiful. This is one of the sheets of paper that was from the Simple Stories collection. And I just love those coral colors and the bright blue color. So I didn't add any mixed media to the background of this particular layout. But putting everything on this piece of paper does allow me to center the cluster very easily. I am attaching down some of the die cuts and some of those leaves that I made. I chose Living in Flip-Flops for the title of the layout. And I'm tucking some flip-flops behind the title right now. I had just decided to add those flip-flops in, so I hadn't inked the edges. So anything that I add to the layout now, I'm going to ink the edges with some Distress ink in Vintage Photo. You can also use Distress Oxide. I've just been kind of getting back into using the few Distress inks that I have, and I really like the Vintage Photo to ink the edges of things, especially that there's some brown in this collection. You could see that under the photo I had tucked in a die cut piece, and that was brown, so I thought that brown would be a good color to use for all of the inking. Usually on my layouts, I have a set number of clusters. Sometimes I have 2 clusters, 3 clusters, even 4 clusters. I normally try to refrain from spreading embellishments all over the page. And clearly here I'm not spreading them all over the page, but the clusters aren't as clear on this layout as they are on some of my other layouts. The embellishments on this layout sort of make a large frame all around the photos. I do try to spread out some of the elements as far as the colors and the shapes. So for example, the coral flowers, the dark coral flowers, there's 3 of them, and you can see that I've placed them in different areas on the large cluster. And I did the same thing with the pink flowers, and I spread the leaves out as well. They're not all clustered in one spot, but it's just a different way of incorporating the embellishments onto the page for me. I wanted the title to stand out, so I put some of the fun foam behind that to raise it up a little bit. Now I'm using some gel glue, and I attached down those dimensional flowers to the background. And I thought that this little flower would be better popped up as well, so I put some foam behind that. And I thought the same of this sign. I love these beach signs. So I thought that this would look nice, popped up a little bit and a little bit more prominent. So I just put some foam on the back and ATG adhesive, and I returned that to the layout. There were little tiny bows in with the ephemera, so I am incorporating those, one below the picture on the right and one above the picture on the left. And it's a very small detail, but I feel like those little details add a lot to the layout. I put a chipboard seagull on the top, and now since the title is Living in Flip-Flops, I thought it would be cute to add some more of the flip-flops to the page. And I arranged them almost so they were kind of walking across the page. I want them to also pop up off the page just like some of the other elements, so now I'm just adding some fun foam. I've really come to love this fun foam or adhesive foam. I find that I'm using it all the time to choose a couple of elements on the layout and just add a little bit of dimension. It just seems to add just the right amount of lift off of the page, and in this case I really like the way it makes the flip-flops a little bit more noticeable. So I'm just arranging them around the page. You can see that I'm not making them even with each other. I'm putting one further up than the other with all 3 of those pairs. And then I wanted to add something to the upper right hand corner. So I went back to the ephemera pack and I found this green banner, and then I found this pink, I guess you could call it a banner, and it says "In the Sunshine." And once again I wanted to give it just a little bit of dimension, so again I used some of this adhesive or fun foam. And just in case you're not familiar with it, the adhesive foam is made for kids projects, and you can find it in any of the big craft stores. And I would look for the kind that is adhesive on one side. You can just buy sheets of foam that don't have any adhesive on it, but I like the ones that are adhesive on one side, so you only have to worry about putting adhesive on the other side. I'm adding a leaf and a little flower to the banners on top just to bring the 2 different areas of the layout together. And now that I have everything attached down, I'm putting ATG adhesive on the back of that huge cluster, and I'm just going to flip it around and attach it down, and I'm pretty much just centering it on the layout. I have a lot of florals on the background, but I just felt like I wanted to add something a little extra to the cluster. So I have a die that looks kind of like little sticks. there's actually more than one of them, but they both look very similar. And I cut out a number of them, and I'm tucking them in just a few places around the layout. I like the way they're very delicate, and I like having a balance between larger items on the page and more delicate items on the page. So I thought that this was just about as delicate as you could get for a floral, and so I thought that would be a good complement to the kind of larger, wider leaves that are already on the layout. And I also like incorporating something that's white because there's so much color in this cluster. One thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to try to space them perfectly evenly around the cluster. I want to have some that are close together. In some areas I have two that are close together, and then in others they're spread kind of far apart. And I feel like that makes them look a little bit more natural. I also like to have a variety of textures on the page, so I like adding some pearls. I feel like that adds something that's a little bit different from the paper. There's a lot of paper elements on the page, so I'm picking out some of these pearls. They don't have a hole in them, but I found that it's much cheaper to get pearls that have a hole in them and just turn them on their side, but I had ordered these a while ago, so I'm using a small, medium, and large size pearl and just spreading them around the layout. Sometimes just a little area will look like it needs something to kind of fill it in. So I'm trying to find those spots around the layout. And then just like with the other embellishments, I don't want them perfectly spaced. I want there to be different distances between them. Now that I have all the pearls where I want them, I'm going around to each of them and I'm putting a little glue underneath them and attaching them down to the page. I'm using some Elmer's gel glue. Now I'm going to add some Bow Bunny glitter paste to the dimensional flowers that are on this layout. This is something that I've been doing a lot. I love the way this Bow Bunny glitter paste goes on so easily, and it adds a nice shimmer to whatever you put it on, and it dries really fast. This glitter paste comes in a lot of different colors. I like to use this one. The color is called Sugar. It's actually transparent, and it just, like I said, adds a little bit of sheen to any elements that you want to highlight on your page. So that completes this layout, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that if you like this video, you'll give it a thumbs up. And please take a look in the description box. This is the limited edition kit, but if you look at the My Creative Scrapbook website, you'll find that they make lots of other beautiful kits as well. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.